Bro. Look, 12th in points, 25th in passing yards, not great. 16th in long passes, and 16th in
13th.
Or 13th in touchdowns with 16. So you would think they would be dead last in everything, but they're not. Your reaction to AJ's recent comments?
Do you guys remember the Jerry Springer show?
Of course.
Lori Povich, things like that,
yeah.
right? And they would
Ricky
always
Lake.
have Ricky Lake, whatever. They'd have these couples go on this show and talk about what they don't like about each other, what the other one has to do
Then
better.
the furniture starts moving.
Right. And I would sit there, not that I watched them a lot, but when I'd catch one, I'd be like, no, I mean, seriously, I wasn't like watching a lot. I was covering the NBA at that time.
Oh, sure.
But
Afternoon games.
no, but I would just be like, if you really wanted to fix your relationship,
You would.
the last thing you do is go on national TV
Great point.
and air your dirty laundry about each other. He did this, she did that. I mean, you want attention. That's what I'd say. If you really want to fix the relationship, you talk to each other privately, you go get counseling privately or whatever it is.
Good point.
And that's what the situation is here. I do think AJ wants to win, wants the ball. I got no problem with him wanting to shine because I think he's a Hall of Fame caliber receiver. So I get him wanting to put up those numbers, but this is immature. The only way this is passable to me is if he's going to Jalen.
If he's done everything private.
Yeah, trying to talk to Sirianni, and they're ignoring him, not putting him in the game. Yeah, whatever, AJ, and he has no recourse. But you know what? I got to go nuclear and say it. But I don't think that's the case. He even said that's not the case. I watched the whole interview. He said it's constant communication with him and Sirianni, the OC, Jalen. He didn't even blame Jalen. Like a reporter actually gave him an opportunity. I don't even think it was a gotcha thing, but he was like, we see a lot of videos where you're open and Jalen's not throwing it to you, throwing it elsewhere. You think he's not. He's like, no, it's because you can't tell from one still shot. He's got reads and he's under pressure and things like that. So he didn't take a shot, but this is just not the way you settle it. And I'm starting to believe that AJ, and again, I got no problem with him wanting to cook and put up great individual numbers. I'm starting to wonder if he looks at his numbers like, I got two catches. I got 4 catches for 50 yards. And he's embarrassed. And it's like he wants to give an explanation for why. Like, don't just think I can't do it anymore. Don't just think I've lost it. I'm going to tell you why my numbers are so pedestrian.
So here's why I don't think I agree with almost everything you said until the very end, which I know is not even, you're not even
And
saying
I'm just
right.
wondering,
It's a hypothetical or a
possible?
hypothesis. Yeah. Certainly possible. It wouldn't be my guess, is I guess what I'm saying. Because this is an instance of the way the message is being conveyed is just objectively wrong. A.J. Brown going on Twitch or Instagram or Twitter to aggressively, passive-aggressively confront the issues with the offense is not the right mechanism. We can all agree on that, while I think, maybe not all agree, but I at least feel, his point that there is something wrong with the offense is unequivocally true. Week 1, they scored 3 second-half points. Week 2, they scored on offense 3 second-half points. Week 3 against the Rams, they're down 26-7 before they kick it into gear. Week 5, they have 0 points the final 28 minutes against the Broncos. Week 6, they have 0 second-half points against the Giants. They then briefly, I think it was the Vikings, and then who'd they blow out? Oh, the Giants when they played them again.
Yeah, 38.
Right, it looked good.
Because remember, go ahead.
And then week 10, after it's like, oh, maybe we're on the right track now after a bye and 2 good games, 0 first-half points against Green Bay. You cannot have the most expensive offense in the history of the NFL, which they do, that's healthy for the most part, that has guys in the primes of their career for the most part, and lead the league in 3 and outs, as they do, amongst these other teams, all of whom, if we're being honest, have massive quarterback questions, which we don't think Philly has, and be 4th most in the NFL on drives that end in a punt, again, surrounded by teams.
That's a crazy one.
With massive quarterback questions.
Let's embark on a comprehensive and detailed deconstruction of the prevailing narrative surrounding the Philadelphia Eagles' offensive struggles. It is a discussion that has become mired in superficial analysis and, frankly, a fundamental misdiagnosis of the core issues plaguing this immensely talented football team. The central argument I aim to present, with rigorous detail and supporting evidence, is that the pervasive criticism directed at the quarterback position is not only misplaced, but actively obscures the true sources of the team's problems. The real culprits, the ones creating a ceiling for this team's potential, reside in the intertwined domains of coaching philosophy, schematic design, and the performance of the offensive line. To blame Jalen Hurts is to treat a symptom while ignoring the disease. The current media discourse is rife with contradictions that collapse under the slightest scrutiny. One of the most persistent and easily debunked claims is the notion that the Eagles' offense is overly reliant on, or force-feeding, their superstar wide receiver, A.J. Brown. This talking point is presented with such confidence, yet it is utterly dismantled by a straightforward examination of the empirical data. When we look at the league-wide statistical rankings for targets and receptions, we find A.J. Brown positioned far outside the upper echelon of NFL pass catchers. He ranks in the 40s and 50s in these key categories, which is astonishing for a player universally recognized as one of the most physically dominant and productive receivers in the game. Now, a valid counterpoint is that Brown has missed time due to injury, which naturally suppresses his cumulative statistics. However, this factor alone cannot explain the sheer extent of his diminished role. To gain a clearer picture, we must engage in a comparative analysis with other elite receivers who have faced similar availability issues. Consider CeeDee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys, who has also been sidelined for a portion of the season. His target count remains nearly identical to Brown's. Look at Garrett Wilson of the New York Jets, who has played a comparable number of games. His target share is also in the same range. The most damning evidence, however, comes from within the Eagles' own locker room. Devonta Smith, Brown's counterpart, has been targeted significantly more frequently over the course of the season, a disparity that holds up even when adjusting for the one additional game Smith may have played. This statistical reality paints an undeniable picture. A.J. Brown is not being overutilized. On the contrary, the offensive scheme has systematically marginalized him, effectively demoting him from the undisputed alpha number 1 receiver he was in the 2022 and 2023 seasons to what now appears to be the 3rd or even 4th option in the progression, behind Devonta Smith, Saquon Barkley, and Dallas Goedert. For a player of Brown's caliber and competitive fire, this isn't merely a statistical downturn. It represents a profound and frustrating shift in his identity and role within the team's offensive ecosystem. His public expressions of frustration, while perhaps not perfectly executed from a public relations standpoint, are a direct and understandable response to this demotion and the offensive stagnation it symbolizes. This leads to a critical point of consensus. I firmly believe that venting these frustrations through public channels or on informal streams is not the optimal method for resolving internal team issues. It generates a media firestorm, creates unnecessary distractions, and puts additional pressure on teammates and coaches. The appropriate arena for these discussions is in the private meeting rooms at the NovaCare complex, in candid conversations with head coach Nick Sirianni, offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, and quarterback Jalen Hurts. The how of his message is flawed. However, we must be careful not to discard the what of his message simply because we disagree with its delivery. His grievance transcends a simple desire for more targets. It is a symptom of a larger systemic failure within the offensive structure, a failure that is stifling the potential of the entire unit. To properly contextualize the Eagles' issues, it is incredibly instructive to examine how the same analytical minds diagnose similar problems in other teams. Let's take the Green Bay Packers as a case study. When discussing their offensive inconsistencies, the conversation does not immediately and reflexively default to questioning Jordan Love's capabilities as a franchise quarterback. Instead, the analysis correctly and intelligently focuses on their inability to establish a consistent and threatening ground game. The diagnosis rightly identifies the root cause: underwhelming and disappointing performance from the offensive line, particularly the interior, where a significant financial investment in a guard has failed to yield the expected returns. The logic is sound and universally applicable. A non-existent run game and a leaky offensive line place an immense and often unsustainable burden on any quarterback, making the offense one-dimensional, predictable, and easy to defend. Now, let us apply this exact same, logically consistent analytical framework to the Philadelphia Eagles. The parallels are striking. Jalen Hurts has been under duress at one of the highest rates in the entire National Football League this season. In fact, when we look at the pressure rate on a per-dropback basis, the data reveals that Hurts is being pressured even more frequently than Jordan Love. The Eagles' run game, despite the presence of the supremely talented Saquon Barkley, has been frustratingly inconsistent. Not because of a lack of effort or ability from the running back, but often due to a fundamental failure at the line of scrimmage to create consistent and viable running lanes. So, we have a clear and established analytical principle. For the Green Bay Packers, offensive struggles are correctly attributed to the offensive line and run game. Yet for the Philadelphia Eagles, who are exhibiting the exact same symptoms, the default explanation inexplicably becomes a referendum on the quarterback. This is a glaring and intellectually dishonest double standard. The evidence, when viewed objectively, points unequivocally to a foundational problem with the engine of the offense, the performance of the 5 men up front. When that foundation is unstable and crumbling, every other aspect of the offensive machine, no matter how sophisticated or talented, is destined to malfunction. This analysis, however, does not absolve the coaching staff. On the contrary, it places an even greater onus on them. The mark of a truly elite offensive coordinator is the ability to diagnose his team's weaknesses and adapt his strategy to mitigate them. He must be a strategist, not just a play caller. If the offensive line is struggling in pass protection and the run game is failing to find its rhythm, the solution is not to stubbornly and dogmatically adhere to a predetermined game plan. The solution is to demonstrate flexibility and ingenuity. This could involve designing a scheme that emphasizes quick game concepts and 3-step drops to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands rapidly. It could incorporate more designed rollouts and bootlegs to move the pocket and change the launch point, thereby confusing pass rushers. It could leverage play-action passes more effectively to slow down the pass rush and create cleaner throwing windows. The fact that we have not witnessed a consistent, coherent, and adaptive strategic response from the play calling of Kellen Moore is perhaps the most significant indictment of the current situation. We have seen flashes of offensive brilliance, such as the performance against the Minnesota Vikings earlier this season. However, a meticulous review of that game reveals that many of the biggest plays and most critical conversions were born not from schematic superiority, but from individual heroics, what can only be described as Jalen Hurts magic. Relying on your quarterback to routinely escape pressure, extend plays with his legs, and make breathtaking throws on the run is not a sustainable blueprint for championship-level success. It is a high-wire act, a strategy that pits individual brilliance against the collective, disciplined structure of opposing defenses. An uphill battle that becomes increasingly difficult to win as the competition intensifies in the postseason. The gold standard for offensive execution in the modern NFL is the partnership between Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in Kansas City. Their success is not a product of Mahomes alone. It is the result of a perfect symbiosis between a transcendent quarterback talent and a truly revolutionary offensive scheme. Reid's system is meticulously designed to create easy throws, scheme receivers open, and systematically dismantle defenses, thereby unleashing Mahomes' otherworldly abilities. In Philadelphia, the dynamic feels tragically reversed. The offensive scheme often appears to lack creativity and purpose, seemingly placing the entire burden of success on the shoulders of its playmakers to create something from nothing, to win their one-on-one matchups consistently, and to make spectacular individual plays outside the structure of the offense. This, I would argue, is the core of A.J. Brown's frustration. It is the exasperation of a player who knows, with absolute certainty, that the collective potential of this offensive unit is being artificially capped not by a lack of talent, but by a profound lack of strategic ingenuity, a failure to innovate, and an inability to put players in positions where their unique talents can be maximized. This, in turn, helps us understand the palpable discontent within the Eagles fan base, a sentiment that is often lazily and condescendingly dismissed as the whining of a spoiled fan base. Eagles fans are not angry or frustrated because the team is losing. They are frustrated because they are witnessing a palpable sense of incompetence within a framework of championship-level expectation. They tune in each week and watch the offense take the field not with a confident anticipation of a methodical, well-drilled unit efficiently moving the chains, but with a sense of dread and uncertainty. There is a widespread and justified lack of faith that the coaching staff can design a game plan, make in-game adjustments, and call a sequence of plays that will consistently outsmart and outperform a quality opponent. The standard in Philadelphia, a city that has felt the euphoria of a Super Bowl victory, is not to be merely better than the struggling Giants or Commanders. The standard is to compete with and defeat the NFL's true elite: the Kansas City Chiefs, the San Francisco 49ers, the Baltimore Ravens. When the offense consistently looks disjointed, unprepared, and schematically bankrupt, it is not irrational panic to be concerned. It is a rational and justified response to observable week-in and week-out evidence. The fans are not being manipulated by a nefarious media. They are simply watching a poorly coached product on the field and are demanding better, as is their right. Therefore, the path to a solution for the Philadelphia Eagles almost certainly does not run through a change at the quarterback position. We have a large and compelling body of evidence that demonstrates Jalen Hurts is capable of performing at an MVP caliber level. We have seen him will this team to a Super Bowl appearance and put forth a legendary performance on that grand stage. The problem is not the engine. The problem is the faulty wiring, the clogged fuel lines, and the unreliable navigation system. Inconsistent team performance, particularly the jarring and predictable swings in effectiveness between the first and second halves of games, is a textbook hallmark of a coaching and preparation issue. Players do not collectively decide to execute flawlessly only in the third quarter. That specific pattern points directly to failed initial game plans, an inability to make effective strategic counter-adjustments as the game unfolds, and a schematic predictability that allows opposing defensive coordinators to quickly identify and exploit tendencies. The solution, then, is far more complex and demanding than the simplistic calls for a new quarterback or the reactionary idea of trading a disgruntled star. It requires a courageous and honest organizational self-audit of the entire offensive philosophy and the personnel responsible for its implementation. Perhaps this means head coach Nick Sirianni must consider bringing in an experienced external offensive consultant to provide a fresh set of eyes and challenge the existing paradigms. Maybe it demands a fundamental and public shift in the play-calling duties, or a radical overhaul of Kellen Moore's offensive system. These are difficult, franchise-altering decisions that carry significant risk and potential for internal friction. However, when a legitimate Super Bowl window is open, as it unequivocally is in Philadelphia, such boldness is not just recommended, it is required. The preponderance of evidence overwhelmingly suggests that the current offensive system is failing to maximize the incredible collection of talent on this roster. We have seen across the league how transformative elite coaching can be. Observe the remarkable career resurgence of Baker Mayfield under the guidance of Dave Canales in Tampa Bay, or the stark, night-and-day difference in Mac Jones's performance and confidence in New England versus his current situation. Coaching in the NFL is not a minor variable. It is the single greatest multiplier of talent in the entire sport. It is the difference between a good team and a great one, between a playoff participant and a Lombardi Trophy winner. In conclusion, the national conversation surrounding the Philadelphia Eagles must evolve beyond its current state of simplistic quarterback criticism and distracting sidebar dramas about a star receiver's media strategy. The real conversation, the one that will genuinely determine the ultimate fate and legacy of this talented team, is a more nuanced and challenging discussion about offensive line technique and cohesion, schematic adaptability and innovation, and, ultimately, coaching accountability and competence. Until the Eagles organization confronts these foundational, systemic issues with the seriousness and urgency they deserve, they will continue to tread the precarious path of relying on heroic individual efforts to win football games, a path that is far too narrow, unpredictable, and ultimately unsustainable for a franchise with legitimate championship aspirations. The talent is unequivocally in the building. The pressing, multi-million-dollar question is whether the coaching and strategic leadership can finally rise to meet it. I am deeply interested in engaging with your perspective on this multi-layered and critically important issue for the Philadelphia Eagles. Do you believe the core problem is fundamentally one of coaching and schematic design? Or do you maintain that the quarterback is a central component of the issue? How would you propose addressing the offensive line's persistent performance inconsistencies? What specific, tangible changes would you advocate for in the team's play calling and overall offensive philosophy moving forward? I read every single comment you post below. Whether you find yourself in full agreement with my detailed analysis or possess a completely different and opposing viewpoint, I genuinely value the intellectual discourse. Let's engage in a detailed, thoughtful, and passionate debate about the strategic future of this Eagles offense. Let's collectively strive to move beyond the superficial, reactionary narratives and delve courageously into the tactical and philosophical heart of the matter. If you appreciate this kind of in-depth, evidence-driven, and nuanced football analysis that actively challenges the mainstream narrative, please consider subscribing to the channel. We are diligently building a community here that values rigorous, evidence-based discussion and a deeper, more sophisticated understanding of the game's intricate complexities. I am committed to creating a digital space where we can all connect over a shared passion for intelligent, forward-thinking sports conversation. We are making significant progress toward that goal, and I would be genuinely thrilled to have you as a part of it. If you found this comprehensive breakdown valuable and thought-provoking, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It genuinely and meaningfully helps us reach more dedicated fans who crave this elevated level of detailed football analysis. Thank you so much for your valuable time, your active engagement, and your unwavering passion for the game we all love. I look forward with great anticipation to reading your thoughts.